She wasn't asking for favors, just a seat on a Black Hawk already slated for the northern outpost. But when she approached with her duffel, the flight officer barely looked up before waving her off. Manifests locked, no room, no exceptions. She didn't argue, just took a step back and stayed silent. That's when a colonel walking past caught a glimpse of something on her sleeve, a patch, barely visible under the fold of her jacket. He stopped mid-stride. It wasn't her name, her rank, or her face that froze him in place. It was the symbol, a relic from a unit that didn't officially exist. He walked over, said 2 words, and the entire flight line snapped into motion, like someone had flipped a switch. Want to know what he said? And why it flipped everything upside down? Hit subscribe and drop in the comments where you're watching from. Now let's get into it. You ever walk into a place and feel it right away that you don't belong? Like you've entered a room where everyone's reading from a script you were never given. That was Camp Thornfield, a forward staging post tucked deep along the edge of Iraq, where trust wore uniforms and silence passed for security. You either had the right badges or you kept your head down and waited. The air was sharp with jet fuel, old regrets, and that desert grit that sinks into your skin no matter how many showers you take. Blackhawks stood in formation like resting giants, rotors still but coiled with quiet menace. Apaches buzzed somewhere farther off, their distant from a constant reminder that the war didn't nap. Generators coughed and groaned alongside the growl of supply trucks, threading through the compound, painting the soundscape of every soldier's memory, a kind of industrial lullaby that somehow never let you sleep. Out of the low shade near a tent on the edge of the airstrip stepped Sergeant First Class Nadia Patel. A single duffel swung casually over one shoulder like it weighed nothing. Her jacket bore no name, no rank, no flag, just threadbare fatigues and combat boots broken by too many campaigns to name. She walked like someone who knew exactly how much ground lay behind her, and didn't need to prove it. She had a limp, almost imperceptible, favoring her right leg, the kind of old wound you stop noticing until cold weather hits. Syria, IED. A blast that nearly claimed the limb, but didn't. She adapted, because sitting out was never her style. At the flight line, 2 MPs stood like statues in their gear, flak vests crisp, rifles slung, watching the Black Hawk warm up with cautious eyes. Its engine stirred, building into that slow crescendo of rhythmic slicing rotors cutting the desert air. With rising urgency, Nadia walked up, steady and unhurried. "Afternoon, gentlemen," she greeted, voice calm but clear. "Sergeant Patel, hoping to catch a ride north on the medevac. I know I'm not on the manifest, but it's urgent." The younger guard, a baby-faced private barely past shaving age, didn't bother looking up. "Manifests locked," he mumbled, focused on his clipboard. "No walk-ons." The older one didn't even try for diplomacy, just gave a flick of his hand, already turning away. "Orders are orders, Mum. Next flight's tomorrow. Maybe." Nadia didn't argue, just nodded once and turned away, settling on a scorched ammo crate nearby. The heat of the metal bit into her hands, but she didn't flinch, dropped her duffel at her feet, sat, and watched the bustle unfold in front of her with the patience of someone who'd learned long ago that action often waits for its moment. Behind her, 2 soldiers with clean uniforms and cleaner boots strolled by, half laughing over something they thought was clever. "Look at her," one muttered, voice loud enough to carry. "Probably never left the TOC." His buddy laughed. "Edmund type. They all walk like they've got steel rods in their spines." Nadia didn't flinch. Her fingers curled tighter around the duffel strap, but her face gave nothing away. She'd learned the hard way reactions are currency, and some things aren't worth spending on. The guards let the pass without question. No glance at papers, no second look. Their clean gear and smug confidence were apparently all the clearance they needed. Meanwhile, Nadia remained where she was, invisible in plain sight, watching a helicopter prepare to leave without her despite knowing she should have been on it. They didn't know why she was there. They didn't know the call that had yanked her out of bed that morning, a scrambled line barely hanging on, full of static and lag and a voice she hadn't heard in years. "Sergeant, it's Malik, Jamal Malik." She recognized him instantly. Smart kid from Detroit, hands steady, heart stronger, one of hers. one of the few she'd mentored who never let the uniform weigh down the person beneath. "What's your status, Jamal?" she'd asked, heart already pacing. "Not good, Mum. Took one to the chest during the last sweep. They patched me, but," his voice cracked, "small. They're saying surgery. Stuff I don't understand. I'm scared." She was packing. Before he finished his sentence, "You asking for me specifically?" "Yes, ma'am, if you can." And now she was here, not as a favor, not for glory, but because someone she'd once trained, someone who trusted her when bullets flew and orders fell apart, had whispered her name into a radio and hoped to God it would reach her. And it had. It wasn't official, not on paper, but it didn't need to be. "I'll be there," she'd told Jamal. No documents, no rank, just a promise made under a blackened sky to a man bleeding out in the dirt. The flight line at Camp Thornfield beat, with its usual Monday chaos. Blackhawks screaming as their rotors spun to life. MPs yelling over the thunder of supply trucks, diesel fumes mixing with the sting of jet fuel, the dessert dust, and the comforting bitterness of overbrewed coffee from the ops tent. Nadia Patel sat alone on a scorched ammo crate, her duffel resting. By her boots, the dismissal from the gate still rang in her ears. Her plain jacket clung to her frame, soaked through from sweat. Across from her, the older MP gave a firm shake of his head. "No space, ma'am. Manifest sealed. Next flights. Tomorrow." She nodded once, saying nothing. Two younger soldiers strutted past, their clean uniforms earning quick nods from the guards. Nadia's limp, worsened by heat and pressure, reminded her of the night shrapnel tore through her shoulder. She adjusted. Her bag, pain blooming faintly, where the scar still raw beneath the fabric pulled tight. The two soldiers smirked at her. "Bet she's never seen a firefight." One muttered over the churn of blades. "Probably just an admin riding coattails," the other added. Nadia didn't flinch. Her mind drifted back to Syria, to that night where the sky fractured with explosions, and her medal-worthy actions dissolved into unspoken pages. No citation, no photo op, just silence. The flight line moved around, her radios blipping, boots dragging in sand, engines flaring, but every mocking word seemed to thicken the air. Near the Apache, a mechanic glanced her way. His eyes caught the edge of her jacket as it shifted. Something registered. His mouth tightened, and though he turned back to his fueling task, his hands trembled. She barely noticed. Her focus was locked on the Black Hawk preparing for liftoff. The lieutenants weren't done. A third joined them, holidanned with him, louder jeers. "That gear? Looks like she got it from a costume shop." He scoffed, leaning against a crate. No insignia, no proof, just another wannabe. Their laughter drew a small crowd, the kind that gathered safely behind hierarchy, behind doubt. Then something changed. A shadow broke from the command post. Colonel Marcus Hale, his uniform crisp, silver oak leaves glinting, boots deliberate, gaze sharp. A man carved from fieldwork and hard years. As he stepped forward, the lieutenants straightened. Their grins fell away like ash. Nadia rose slowly, her jacket slipping just enough to reveal a patch on her sleeve. Charcoal gray, a phoenix black, as gunmetal, a dagger beneath its wings, worn, faded, unmistakable. Silence rolled across the tarmac. The crew stopped, guards froze, even the radios softened. Hale's eyes locked on the patch. His voice, when it came, was low, like a memory rising unbidden. "Shadow Ascent, Mosul, 09. The air thickened. He stepped closer. The lieutenants, Hullet included, stood stiffly, unsure now. Nadia met the colonel's gaze, her duffel still at her feet, her expression unreadable. "You flew in that night," Hale said. She nodded once. "Tail gunner. Covered your exfil." The words seemed to echo beyond her lips. Hale's jaw set, his mind somewhere else now, pinned between bullets, smoke, and screams. "Taliban had us boxed in. For Kier, 22 trapped. No air support. Then you came. Ghost team." He looked again at the patch. No records, no recognition. Just shadows. People around them exchanged uncertain looks. Hullid shifted, his bravado crumbling. Hale turned, his voice now sharp steel. "Get me the flight lead." Now, an MP broke into a run, returning moments later with a captain. The man saluted. Hale didn't wait. "This is Sergeant First Class Nadia Patel. Shadow ascent. Mosilo 9. She flew black protocol. Full clearance. Immediate priority. Get her on that bird. The captain blinked once. Then his eyes dropped. To her patch, recognition flared. Yes, sir, he barked. He turned to the crew. Load her gear. Now. Nadia's duffel disappeared into the hands of eager ground staff. Hullid stepped forward. Shane tightening his features. Ma'am, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Nadia didn't blink. You didn't ask. The sentence cut clean. No venom. Just fact. He nodded slowly. I will next time. She gave him a single nod. Nothing more. Let it linger. Let it teach. Colonel Hale walked beside her to the waiting Black Hawk. It's not a favor, he said, quietly. It's duty. As she boarded, the colonel brought his hand to his brow in a crisp salute. Others followed. One by one. By dusk, the story would spread like wildfire. Nadia Patel. The ghost soldier with the patch no one dared wear. The phantom with the flight record no one could see. Inside the aircraft, the familiar hum wrapped around her like an old coat. Her hands steadied on the harness straps. Jamal was waiting. North. Chest wound. Still breathing for now. The bird lifted into the burning sky, blades carving through the silence. She carried no rank, no banner, only the vow. And the patch that whispered of promises kept in the dark.